I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. It's actually a quote. It's still Gian here, although it was empowering for a moment. Still, those 10 commandments can be pretty commanding, can't they? Those divine moral standards from the Old Testament have shaped laws, institutions, and ethical beliefs for millennia, as well as being the focal point of cultural and religious conflict. But how should we interpret the original intent of the commandments today? Well, my next guest has a few ideas, and he's sure to upset religious purists in the process. That's because he is Christopher Hitchens, the writer, political commentator, and author of God is Not Great, the bestseller that argues religious faith itself is false, unnecessary, and in some cases, and I quote, a threat to human survival. He's in Canada to kick off a series at Toronto's Royal Ontario Museum in association with the ROM's exhibition Dead Sea Scrolls, Words That Change the World. Mr. Hitchens will give his thoughts on how the Bible's moral codes can be interpreted today, and he'll be asked to add 3 more commandments to the original 10. But right now, Christopher Hitchens joins me in Studio Q. Hello, sir.
How nice of you to have me.
It's very good to have you here. Let me start with the obvious. Why is a renowned atheist commenting on something he doesn't believe in?
Well, don't think I didn't consider asking the ROM why I was getting a twofer in this manner, but I should start by saying I'm more of an anti-theist than an atheist. In other words, my view is not just that there is no reason to believe that there is a deity, and that all the arguments that there is one have all long since been exploded by philosophers, astronomers, scientists, physicists, biologists, and so forth. Mainly by philosophers, though, in my opinion. But that it's a good thing that that's not the case. In other words, I do know some non-believers who wish it was true, who would think it would be nice if there was a celestial dictatorship.
Sure.
I can't make myself want there to be a celestial dictatorship. I mean, I think it would be the absolute definition of unfreedom if there was an unchanging, undying, all-supervising, all-knowing Father who kept you under surveillance before you were born, all your life, and after you were dead.
There's secretly no part of you somewhere inside you that thinks it wouldn't be so bad to hang out in heaven and or live beyond your 80 or so years or however long.
No, I don't have any big brother envy at all. It's much more a big brother than a big father idea, but I mean, I am a father, and I know one of the jobs of a father is to, as it were, move on. I won't put it any more dramatically than that. I mean, get out of the way, give the children some room. If I said to them, hey, children, I'm never leaving. You'll always have me, always, forever. In fact, I'm going to be at your funerals, and in the meantime, I'm going to supervise you. Even after you're dead, I'm going to carry on
go
doing
to another
it.
place.
What kind of fatherhood is that? What kind of paradise would it be? No, I mean, if one was to believe in the supernatural at all, which I don't. I mean, I think the supernatural dimension is a man-made illusion. I can see why Milton makes the devil so attractive, because you'd rather be in hell than be serving forever a benevolent dictator.
Well, I mean, to return to my question.
So that's Paradise Regained.
Interestingly, in your book, you make the case that if the Lord created everything, why does he need commandments? Why does he then need to give us rules? Let me flip it on you. If you don't believe in it, why do you need to tell us about your disbelief?
Well, staying with my point about the totalitarian and the authoritarian, if you want in the real world, the only world I think we have, the material world, the physical world, if you want to have power over other human beings, the most potent way, that's a bit of a repetition to say potent and powerful, but anyway, the most effective way of claiming and exerting power over fellow humans is to say you're doing it in God's name, that you're God's appointed. They can't challenge that. You can't just say, hey, I'm me, you should do what I say. Well, though people do. But they can get laughed at, which potential tyrants hate. The best thing is to say, no, I'm doing God's work here. I am God's representative on earth. That's been, ever since antiquity, the easiest way of establishing a dictatorship, and the worst dictatorships today are still theocratic ones. So what this all represents is an argument over unresolved contradictions in the real world, and that, you'll notice, is where priests really want power. Look at the way the Pope behaves. Look at the way the Ayatollahs behave. Look at the way the rabbis on the West Bank stealing other people's property in the name of God behave. Do they want power in this world or the next? It's pretty obvious which one they want power in, and property too.
Specifically in the case of the commandments, you wrote an essay for Slate a few years ago, and in it you questioned what you called the vague pre-Christian desert morality of the Ten Commandments, which you say show every sign of being invented by a Bronze Age demagogue. So we can assume that you don't have much respect for the Ten Commandments.
Well, you notice that the Ten Commandments begin by saying, don't have any other gods. In other words, they're not even monotheistic. They're saying there are other gods, but I'm a jealous one. Choose me. And then that they're all addressed to people who don't know about anything except agriculture. I mean, all the commandments are effectively to do with animals and agricultural subsistence, except for commandments that every society has.
Right.
Such as prohibitions against
murder, lying.
Murder, theft, and perjury are the ones that are, I would say, unimpeachable. And then I don't want to give away too much about what I'm speaking of later, but I'll just say this much. I mean, the 10th commandment, which is the one I'm writing independently another book about, forbidding thought, defining thought crime, as Orwell would put it, as Big Brother does put it for the first time. You're not allowed to think about your neighbor's property.
Right.
You're not allowed to covet. Not allowed
right.
to have the ambition to be as well off as, or have the. It's not. You mustn't take your neighbor's property. You mustn't try and annex it to yourself, steal it. You mustn't even think about it. The beginning of thought crime, which is the beginning of the totalitarian idea that you're guilty for thinking things, which you may only have been half aware of doing. You may have been half asleep. But you're still condemned. This is very, very dangerous stuff.
I mean, you're obviously well established and renowned as a contrarian thinker, but is this really this black and white for you? I mean, are there no nuances? Or you resolutely believe that there's no use for these commandments?
Well, no, to the contrary. I'm sorry. I mean, in the Analects of Confucius, for example, long before monotheism, it says, don't do to another person what you would find repulsive if done to yourself. It's actually a rather weaker rule than most people realize, but it is what we call the golden rule. It's been around as long as human society has been around.
Don't do unto thy neighbor.
We wouldn't, you and I couldn't have evolved far enough to be having this discussion with this technology if people were any different. I mean, if we didn't have an instinct for solidarity and for common interest and for care for one another, life would be impossible. The idea that we wouldn't know this without a supernatural authority, however, is a groveling, slavish idea, as if we need permission to know what is innate to us. Religion actually takes its morality from us, not the other way around.
So, right.
Whereas
God didn't create humans, humans created God, is
let
your
me
position.
put it like this. I mean, if I've put this question to various people, quite senior religious people in public in debates several times, and they haven't come up with an answer yet. You have to tell me of a moral statement that could be made by a believer, or a moral action undertaken by a believer, that I couldn't make or undertake because I'm not a believer. Something that would be impossible for me. I've not yet been told what that would be. Whereas if I ask you the corollary question, can you think of a wicked action done by a believer because of his or her belief? You can think of one right away. The suicide bombing community is all religious. The genital mutilation community, not exclusively,
right,
because of the Tamil Tigers, I suppose, who are partly religious, by the way.
But religious people wouldn't claim
the
that
genital mutilation of children is a religious commandment.
Right.
These are things that wickedness is that people wouldn't commit without God. So there's quite a sharp divorce between ethics and religion, and morality and religion.
But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a religious person who would claim that there's never been any negative implications or violence or wicked deeds that have been done in the name of religion.
They say in the name of. It's not in the name of. That's their get-out clause. You echo it yourself. Don't mean to pick you up on it. Actually,
sure.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
It's not
yes,
in the name
do.
of. No, it's explicit. It's part of the religion. The most celebrated action of the Abrahamic is the willingness of someone to gut and murder his own son because he thinks it will please God.
But the flip side of that, I mean, if you say, you go back to Confucius, if the basic rules of these commandments, some of them, I mean, and I'm thinking from 4 through 8 now, right? Adultery, lying, stealing, be honest. These are basic, if these are basic rules that people use to try and live a good life or try and be good to their fellow citizens, what's wrong with that?
Nothing, except that if you're telling me that the Jewish people wouldn't have known this if they hadn't been at the foot of Mount Sinai, and having it on tablets as if from God. Now, as it happens, that story is a myth. I mean, there was no Egyptian slavery, there was no exile, there was no wandering in the Sinai. All that's made up, but it's still insulting to the Jewish people to say that without